Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to English Poetry. Today we start a very interesting part of our course. It's actually the final sets of poems. We have two poems written by one written by a Jewish man and the other written by an Israeli man poet. I asked you early in the course, what do you want? You know, I thought you would be like Sibyl saying, we want to die. But you said you wanted Palestinian and Israeli poetry, and I think this shows how mature your thinking is. Not that if you say something else, you don't have that. But it's significant to study to see what Israel does, what the Zionist movement has been doing with poetry. So far we spoke about the thrilling aspects of poetry, how poetry transcends us, how poetry breaks the barriers and the boundaries and pushes the boundaries. You know, all these cliches we use to talk about how the aesthetic values of poetry, how poetry helps and contributes to the advancement of human thought and civilization, how poetry changes people, how poetry unites us, brings us together, etc., etc. Because poetry is universal, because poetry, you know, transcends all these barriers of race and gender and religion and geography and time, etc. However, poetry has also been used as a tool, a weapon by totalitarian regimes, by colonizers. And this is in part what Edward Said was doing in Orientalism, in his amazing book, Orientalism. Edward Said examined how the West, how Europe used literature in order to create certain realities, to change narratives, to change discourse, to present the others, Africans, Asians, people in the Middle East, non-white, non-European, non-Christians, as savages, uncivilized, in need of help, and that was the white man's moral obligation to go there, build civilization, civilize those people. And despite the fact that this poetry and literature, like, is still fascinating as a work of art, but thematically speaking, when poetry becomes an ideological tool, it loses its poetic value in many ways. I'm talking about this at a time we mentioned how Israel, we mentioned this many times, how Israel still arrests Palestinians for writing poetry. Darien Tatour is an example. We said what the Israeli general war criminal Moshe Dayan said about Fadwa Tuqan, how a poem by Fadwa Tuqan is like facing 20 Palestinian commandos. Now, the gist of what I have in mind here is that Palestine, and this is significant, was first and foremost occupied metaphorically in poetry, in literature. Because how can you ask people to move from one place, and this happened before the Holocaust, before, you know, there has always been anti-Semitism and racism against Jews around the world throughout time and place. But this is before, because the Holocaust was, khalas, the final thing. Let's go to somewhere else, and there were so many places, and Palestine sadly was the place. We're not sad. I'm not sure who said this. Was it, what's her name? Rashida Tlaib, the Palestinian American congresswoman, who said, we welcomed the victims of the Holocaust. We welcomed those Jewish refugees running away from Europe, from the white man. And we don't regret this. But again, it's sad how the Zionist regime used the Holocaust in order to destroy Palestinians, to destroy Palestine, and to establish a state only for the Jews. So if you want to tell people, let's go there, partly you have to convince them that this place is what? Empty? And paradoxically, that it also flows with milk and honey, the biblical, you know, phrase. And also that there are no people there, yeah? There are no people there. And that God gave us this place. And you just keep doing this in literature. And if you do this, this includes a lot of exclusion and inclusion and fabrications and, you know, changing realities, or as the Trump teams would be saying, alternative facts. There are facts, and there are alternative facts. I have a very beautiful poem written by okay, I'll start with the second poem written by a Jewish poet. When I say Jewish, it's basically because he was born before, like he was writing before the establishment of Israel, so to speak. The poem is Tuvia. Please don't look at your book. I have something in mind. Don't. Close your book. Close your book. There, I said, Tuvia Rubner, a man born in Europe, not in Palestine. I set out of my temporary home to show my sons the place that I came from. And he means Palestine, he doesn't mean Slovenia or Slovakia. There, I said, I lay on the ground with a stone for a pillow, lower than the grass, like the dust of the earth. Everything has been preserved there. We passed through mountains, forests, and cities that were caves, and water gathered in pools on the way, and the roads were bad. The car bumped over ditches. I was born here, I said to my sons. My parents and grandparents were born nearby. Everybody is born somewhere. There was a house here, I said to my sons. And the wind came between me and the word. Last stanza. I set out to show my sons the place that I came from. Now I want you to take a moment, especially those who haven't read the poem yet, because the remaining two lines, the last lines, are actually the sons replying to their father. I want you to guess what the sons would be saying to their father, going through this beautiful experience. This is like a Darwish-like poem, right? Look at the first stanza. With a stone for a pillow, lower than the grass, like the dust of the earth. Everything has been preserved there. I was born here, my parents were born there. We passed by mountains and forests and cities and caves, and the water gathered in pools. Yeah, the road was bumpy. There were ditches. Look at this beautiful thing. I was born here. My parents and grandparents were born nearby. Everything is born somewhere. There was a house here, I said to my sons, and the wind came between me and the words. I set out to show my sons the place I came from. Yeah? Give me a guess. How would the kids, the sons, probably indicating that they're not just children, they are adults, at least teenagers. I said, don't look, listen to me.
I'd say, like he said, everything was preserved here. The children would be saying, like, who preserved it?
So you're going for the kids questioning their parents, their father's narrative.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Why you didn't live there, my father, the children is
Okay, asking questions. So question, good. The idea of questioning, isn't it very good?
I think they would believe them because of their.
Oh, thank you, God, for Dad, for bringing us here.
If their parents believe the myth of a land without people, that
Thank you.
money as well, their sons would be thinking the same stupidly way.
So you're saying this is a process. If the parents are this brainwashed, or this is, if he's been indoctrinating his sons, they must be ready to accept the alternative facts. That's also good. More, please. No, not you. Sorry, you looked. One more. Somebody else. Yeah. How would the sons be replying to their dad? Please.
Maybe, do you have a picture of the whole old house? Do you have a picture of
Yeah. Do you have photographic evidence? But if this was composed like 100 years ago,
No photography.
this is an old poem. Please.
These sons were
that's true, and they would ask they would say something like, "It's better to stay in a place where everything is already, like we're living in, that everything is already secure."
So they will be reluctant to accept
than to go to a place you're
alternative
just
facts.
heard about.
So are you suggesting that there could be some kind of alienation, like if the father is truly and really attached to this land, as the poem shows, perhaps the kids, the sons, will not be as much attached to the land. But poetically speaking, what would they, like, good ideas, how would you put this in poetry? Remember, poetry is not basically, mainly good poetry is not direct. Poetry that gives us answers is not, but poets say things in different ways. How would you, if you are the poet, how would you conclude?
Our ideology or his ideology?
Of course, like you should be in his shoes. You have to endure the stink, of course. Yes? Okay, you can keep the music as background. Yes, please. How would you do this? Okay, but I like your ideas. They are really, really very, very good ideas. This is what the kids say. And when will we eat? Ask my sons. And where will we sleep? This is not the whole poem. I did this here. Academically, you have to be honest. This ... I added this is ellipsis because I don't want to study the whole poem. Well, I can send you the whole text. So what do you make of this? Like first the poem, and then the kids reply. Yeah. So you guess that there will be questions, but interesting questions. When will, like the dad, imagine, this happens a lot. The dad would be like passionate about something, about football, about his past, about something that he did, about playing football, about flying kites, about doing many things. And then the kids would be like, meh. So this is the meh. But what does it indicate? Okay, let's go to the first stanza. What do you think? What do you notice about this, poetically speaking? You wrote poetry, some of you. Do you think this is... and again, please don't do this. I know many people, when they study, for example, a poem by an Israeli poet or Jewish poet, the first thing they want to do is it good, is it bad? That's not what we do, why we do poetry. You could like the poem, you could hate the poem, it's up to you. But please don't like a poem or any text because of who wrote it. The death of the author. The death of the author could be significant here. But you can still love the poem from an artistic point of view, but still don't like what the poem is saying, what the poem is promoting. Please.
Okay, first starting with the form, we can notice that it has it doesn't have a regular rhyme scheme. It starts with a pronoun. We have a conversation between the son and the father. So we have two characters basically in this poem.
Okay.
Sons.
Okay. So, I don't want to comment more on the language and the rhyme scheme because this is translated from, I think, another language. I'm not sure if this is Hebrew originally, but that's something good to show. This is personal experience. Starting with I, probably I being more important than the place here they're talking about. There are many I's here. There seems to be a dialogue. Because he said, I said to my kids, I lay on the ground, I was born there, my parents and grandparents were born nearby. But at the end, we realized that the other party, the sons, were not into this dialogue. I'm not sure if we can call this a dialogue.
It's not perceiving
because they were not reciprocating his interest, his passion. They were just
caring about food, sleep. They don't care about. They didn't receive his feeling about that, like belonging to the land.
They didn't care about his passion, whatever he tries to convey to them. They cared more about food and dressed, physical. Look at the man, what the man did. I find this beautiful. I lay on the ground with a stone for a pillow, lower than the grass. like the dust of the earth. The simile here, the simplicity of the simile. Like I became part of this land. That simple. Because he claims that he belongs. Everything has been preserved. And then we passed, that's part of the journey, or some kind of journey of initiation, through mountains, forests, and cities that were caves, and water gathered in pools on the way, and the roads were bad. The car pumped. So it's not all, idyllic and romantic. There were some difficulties, basically. The roads, probably they're not as smooth as they are in Europe. There were so many ditches, holes, potholes. And again, that's the core of the poem. I was born here. This is my land. I said to my sons, my parents are, and grandparents were born here, nearby. Look at this interesting thing. There was a house here, the past. I said to my sons, and the wind came between me and the words. The wind, nature, interfering. I set out to show my sons the place that I came from, and when will we eat? They said, and when will we eat? Asked my sons, and where will we sleep? So yeah, we have the past simple tense. If we talk about the father, he basically uses the past simple tense, right? And the sons use a future. It's interesting. This man cares about this connection. He's in a journey to find connection, to find roots. But the kids, all they care about is food and sleep, rest. Now the temporary home refers to his home in Europe. That's not my place. Despite the fact that the Jews lived for hundreds and hundreds of years in Europe. Which is something interesting. Some of you are studying the Merchant of Venice right now. Shylock and the ghettos, the isolation imposed on them and probably sometimes chosen. Now I find this very interesting, how he used, there's a short story I picked from Morning in Jenin from Susan Abu Hawa's novel. It's just 2 pages, I picked it as a short story. And Susan Abu Hawa tries to show the difference between Ari and Hassan are friends, Palestinian Muslim, Palestinian Jew. And she tries to show how they are different in terms of what the land means to them. For Hassan, the soil, the land is everything. It's his future, it's his livelihood, it's his life. He is part of this. He cares more about it than anything else. But for Ari, the land is dirt. Hassan is a farmer. Ari goes to study medicine. I think here the fact that he uses a stone for a pillow rather than, simply lying on the ground without anything in between you and the land could indicate how he's
unifying himself with his land.
No.
possibly true, yeah, because he says like the dust of the land. But the stone here still
Makes up,
creates some kind of a buffer zone,
no, makes more sense.
See the point here? It's like he doesn't want to be part. It's not like poetically speaking. He doesn't directly mix with the land, unite with the land. He uses something else in between. I'm not sure if this indicates again how hard he's trying to. He's attempting to find roots, but again failing, because still the land is strange to him. It's not his motherland. If this is your land, you don't want to. I'm not sure if you have this experience. If you have a plot of land here or there, if you're farmers originally, farmers wouldn't be. If you go to your friend to visit them in their field, the first thing you look for a chair to sit or a piece of cloth or a stone or something, because you don't want to get dirty. But for them, this is their life. This is part of them. This is not getting dirty. This is being there. This is again an extension of the connection here. like the dust of the earth, everything has been preserved there. And this is, again, what I want to focus on. If we talk about the problem with the Zionists in general, is that many problems actually, is that they in translation there's something called inclusion and exclusion, and that's seriously dangerous. If you translate a text, you translate a text. You don't just pick paragraphs or something and present it in a way that serves your own ideology. So yeah, the Jews were here in Palestine, came from different geographical places, but before the Jews there were many other people there, the Canaanite, for example. But for them, history begins when the Jews came to Palestine. And history, even, not sure if you're following Haaretz, Israeli newspaper, has been showing in many ways so many archaeological finds that prove that the people before the Jews came, they had we know this, we have been saying this for a long time. They had their civilizations, their places, their cities, their villages and everything. But they have been eradicated from history, erased by the Zionists. They simply don't exist. History in Palestine begins the moment the Jews came to Palestine. And then when they were expelled by the Romans, history stopped there. For 2,000 years, there was nothing. Palestine, the promised land, has been waiting for the return of the Jews, the chosen people. So this is a fabrication. And I mentioned this before. Mahmoud Darwish said, I came back to visit my original village, and there were the remains of my family house, the remains of the houses of my relatives and people I know. He said, I met a Jewish shepherd originally from Yemen, and he said, when I chatted with this guy, I realized that he thinks that these ruins are actually Roman ruins. So Palestinian villages, and we know and that's why I hate such kind of poetry. I like it from an artistic point of view. Thank you. Because this poetry was one tool. Yes, the Zionists used terror, they used politics, they used money, they used everything to destroy Palestine and create Israel. And I think this kind of poetry is in part to blame for the ethnic cleansing and destruction of Palestine, for massacres, for destroying in 1947, 48, 49, and these years, Israel destroyed over 400 Palestinian villages. Can you imagine that? Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were dismissed, displaced, kicked out. Tens of thousands were killed. And the man here is saying that everything has been preserved. So Palestine was empty, just waiting for them to return back. No, not everything has been preserved. طيب. So when a Jewish poet says everything has been preserved, this is a fabrication of history. This goes against history. And again, if you are interested, I really can send you many articles that from Israeli scientists recently who started to show that most of Israelis' theories about Palestine and the Jews here were actually fabrications and myths. Look at the half shekel. The half shekel, the half shekel, there is a lyre. And I find the pun very interesting, L-Y-R-E, the musical instrument. This was a lie. Somebody came in the 60s or 70s and said, wow, I found this. And this proves that we were here before, etc. This proves that we are the rightful owners of the land. And 20 years later, this was discovered to be a fabrication. And we still have it. Even Netanyahu, like 3 years ago, he posted a coin because there was this post on Facebook saying a kid somewhere in Palestine a Jewish kid found an ancient coin. And he boasted about it on Facebook, on Twitter, saying, yes, we are the rightful owners of Palestine. And it turns out to be a souvenir from the gift shop, a lie. In if you read more, there is always this literature about the enmity between, the hostility between the Jews when they came to Palestine thousands of years ago and the natives of Palestine. But now studies started to prove that no, there were good relationships between those people. So those people were welcoming of those Jewish immigrants who came from around Palestine. Okay? Now, again, I'm not sure what he means here when he says the cities that were caves. I'm not sure if he refers to how in the past the Jews used caves and nature and mountains as places, or whether he refers to the existing natives, the Palestinians who are primitive, as to live in caves in the 20th century. And look at the water, and the roads were bad, indicating this is not a smooth ride, this is not a smooth journey. There will be ditches, there will be some difficulty on the road. Told you. And again, we go back to this. I was born here. He wasn't. But again, he is erasing 2,000 years of history. I was born here. No, you were born in Europe. And my grandparents were born nearby. Yeah, if Russia is nearby, or Slovakia, or what's the country? There was a house here. I find it interesting how he starts from home and then he says house here. Home is more about feelings and emotions. A house is more about the physical structure. I said to my sons, and again, this is my second piece of evidence how nature is rejecting, how the land is rejecting him, is telling him you're a liar. And the wind came between me and the words. We see this in comedies and movies, and somebody saying something and then a thunderbolt destroying this place, or something like stop lying or something. So the wind here, nature, which is part of Palestine, is saying to him, shut up. Don't do this. That's too much. Now the last stanza, again he repeats, I set out to show my sons. The repetition indicates how this is the same thing. He does this again and again, and he never gets tired. And that's possibly why the kids are fed up with him. Now, this could indicate that the sons are detached. They're not connected, as much connected to Palestine as his father. However, showing this gap. However, I think on a second reading, I think the poet is trying to shame the kids, the younger generation, to incite them, to shame them into what the hell are you doing, to provoke them. Not just to say that, oh, my kids are useless. The poem at the end, if you are a young man, and this is a very important topic, if you read it, is he sending a signal to the leaders, telling them that, be careful, our kids are not ready. Whatever we do, if our kids are not ready to go back to Palestine, we're not going to be successful. Because no matter what we do, how hard we work, at the end of the day, they're going to be like, and when will we eat and where will we sleep? Very interesting thing. Okay, I'll get back to you. There are questions here, I want you to think of the relationship. Is the speaker's relationship to the land genuine, and how is that? The father is in search for a connection with the land, while his sons care about something else. Why? How? What is it? What does that indicate? This is a poem about Palestine, and that's my last point before I listen to you. And in Palestine. But where are the Palestinians? If this was written in the early years of the 20th century, I think there were close to 1 million Palestinians.
Apparently we don't exist.
Yeah, Palestinians don't exist. The poem erases them, annihilates them, eradicates them, takes them out. And therefore, and think of how politics and poetry, come together and play this important role. Now, Golda Meir, Israeli war criminal, and Prime Minister said that there is no such thing as Palestinians. They never existed. They don't exist. Now, this is a political statement, but I think it was made long time ago in poetry. Palestinians never, there's no such thing as the Palestinians. They never existed. They don't exist. And you'll find like other poems. I did some research on this. If you're interested, I can send it to you. That Palestinians are not mentioned, they're not there. But when they are, they're savages, they're uncivilized. They want somebody, to kill them, to kick them out, to civilize them, to send them out of Palestine. So again, this is how dangerous poetry can be as an ideological tool. So I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to say something briefly about this poem, quickly.
Can I say something about the existence?
I said go on, so you don't have to ask.
So when the kids said that where will we sleep or when we eat, so the Palestinian in these 2 sentences, they are the effects of them in their existence. Maybe some other kids know about technology, watch some videos about Palestinians in the land, and they sure that this land is.
But again, it doesn't mean like all sons are going to be reacting in the same way. So if you're saying Palestinians will, I'm sure that Palestinians who were born in America in the diaspora, when they come to Palestine to visit Palestine, they're not going to be, yeah, food is good, I want to eat, but it's not going to be your first concern or your first question. Thank you.
He said that the roads were bad and the wind that stopped his words are proofs for that the nature is rejecting them. But I saw that his way to prove to his children that they were the first there, for that if there were first people before them, they would fix the roads and build houses, and they would.
Yeah, possible, but again, don't compare a country that has been under occupation and European invasion for hundreds of years to Paris or London or other European cities. Many people make this mistake. So there was this person arguing that in terms of European definition of what a city is, yeah, there were no cities not only in Palestine, but in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia even. We talk about close to 1 million people living in Palestine at that time. If those people didn't exist, then those people who say Palestinians don't exist or didn't exist are mass murderers, they're genocidal.
You said that the tenses are like past tense and future tense, but in the last stanza they ask my sons. It is like present. So
exactly, the son. Like what I'm saying is that because this is also the present is close to the future here. So he said, we passed. I said, right? I said, and then I said again and again. I said, the wind came. But the reality came, etc. The reality is the son, the kids are in the present and the future. They care more about what's going on now and what's going to happen in the future.
does that indicate that
Unlike
this is the current situation now and we have to change it?
possibly, yes. Possibly, yes. So that's why I'm taking this poem as some kind of shaming the sons. For God's sakes, do something. If you want to live in the future, if you want to change your now, you have to start from the past.
Yes.
Finally.
I feel that the tone in this poem, like the father is trying to convince the children, as if this the first time that I told he's telling his children about this land. It's like a surprising thing, and the children are not interested in listening to their father. And there's something else that...
Wait a minute. I think there is an indication that he's been doing this for years and years, again and again and again. This is not the first time. So they're either bored, fed up, or probably this is what every time they say. I'm sorry, we're not running out of time, and I have to go for the other poem. We can continue the discussion online. Told you. So the second poem is this, again, a fascinating poem by an Israeli poet named Yehuda Amichai. Yehuda Amichai is like Mahmoud Darwish for us Palestinians. He is the prince of poets. Last class, I gave you some time to write a reflection on this poem. Some of you spend a lot of time trying to prove who the poet is. I don't care. We usually care about, because remember, there will be an unseen poem before your final exam. There are steps to do. You look at the form and the sounds, at the language, at the poeticality of the text, the figures of speech, and try to bring together how many of these or all of these can contribute to enforcing a particular theme or a particular idea. So the shape of the poem is interesting. There is space here, like 3 stanzas. It says, the title is sometimes on a roof in the old city or Jerusalem. On a roof in the old city, laundry hanging in the late afternoon sunlight. The white sheet of a woman who is my enemy. The towel of a man who is my enemy. To wipe off the sweat of his brow. In the sky of the old city, a kite. At the other end of the string, a child I can't see because of the wall. We have put up many flags. They have put up many flags to make us think they are happy, to make them think they are happy. What a beautiful, fascinating poem. Beautiful in many ways. But then again, I'll comment at the end how this is again doing damage to Palestine, to Palestinians. So if you look at the shape first and foremost, considering that this is like 3 stanzas, probably the third stanza being some kind of a wall. And even the third stanza itself creates some kind of walls. Nice. Okay. So the speaker is an eye. I can't see. How many eyes do we have? 1. And then yes? My enemy, his. So there's the difference between we and they, the others, Palestinians. Again, I find the simplicity of the poem to be profound, fascinating. Shakes people. It says that we are all human, basically doing the same thing. Those people are humans. But dangerously, there are many things lying beneath, if we can read between the lines. So the laundry in the late afternoon here, on the roof in the old city, laundry hanging in the afternoon. That's laundry. What he sees is interesting. The white sheet, the sheet being white is interesting. The towel, the sweat, like an indication. But there are no people there. The people are just out of the frame. We see their belongings, their things. If the man is on some kind of a roof in Jerusalem, I don't know, on a recliner, probably smoking. He's suggesting that there is what? There is what here? There is a wall. And the wall is separating him and everything else. So what does he see? He sees the laundry, if assuming this is summer, he sees the towel, he sees the sheets, the white sheets, probably what? Palestinian surrendering, defeat. And interestingly, he sees something beautiful, which is what? A kite. Does he see the child? No. He's at the other end of this, he just assumes that this is what? This is a child, and this is a kite. Yeah, I can draw a kite.
It indicates innocence.
Innocence, freedom,
Normal life.
creating a normal life. It's like, see, Palestinians can fly kites. Everything is fine.
But he isn't sure because he says, I can't see.
Thank you very much. But again, he can't see, but he's certain that this is a child. Basically because mostly it's kids who fly kites. Look at this. Kite, child, and then how interestingly he builds a wall himself in words. So there is the physical wall. There are many walls in Jerusalem. Some of them are very historical, very ancient. Some of them Israel built. It's not like, there's a wall here. We can't see each other. We can't communicate. We can't speak. And this is again part of how alternative facts are offered. Israel caused this. Israel built the wall. And this is very dangerous because this presents, liberal Zionists always do this, he presents people as equally to blame for what's going on. There's a wall, Palestinians are to blame, Israelis are to blame. He himself is building a psychological wall. He's also building a wall in words. Look at this topography of the poem, the shape. You should have noticed this. You should notice everything. So there's the kite here, and at the other end of the string, there is a child behind the wall, and he's saying this, I can't see because of the wall. Who built it? Probably just fell down from heaven. And then there are some things here. What? Flags. Palestinian flags, and then also Israeli flags. Yeah? Whatever they are. But look at this. Also something that I thought of. In Palestine, in Jerusalem in particular, you're not allowed to fly to raise Palestinian flags. You could be brutalized. You could be sent to prison. Probably you've seen videos of Palestinians raising Palestinian flags, attacked. In the first Intifada, Palestinians were sent to prison for 6 months if they had a Palestinian flag. It was a taboo. And until this very day, you're not allowed. We see Palestinians raising Palestinian flags in Jerusalem here, and then sometimes they're just taken violently and dripped because Palestinians don't exist. Because the flag is a symbol of nationalism, symbol of unity, of pride. Israel doesn't want us to feel this. This is another fabrication here. So they are to blame. There's a wall. There is flags. We raise flags, and that's not good. This is some kind of colonial literature. It brainwashes. It presents the Israelis as innocent. They're not innocent. They're complicit in this occupation, in enforcing this occupation. You know, I don't like to do this to poetry. That's why I say this is a very beautiful poem from a poetic, artistic point of view. Fascinating, amazing. And again, I find this very, very interesting how some of you attributed this poem to a Palestinian poet. I find no, if you wrote this in your reflection, I'm not going to deduct marks, but because this is what the poem is supposed to do. You think that this is a Palestinian, and you do. In one of my experiments, of many experiments I do with my students, I had a class of 40, and I divided them into 2 parts, and I asked the first group to write me a reflection on this poem, and I didn't say who the poet is. It was just a text. And the other group, I said, the Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai, please. So the students who were who knew that this is an Israeli poet were like trashing the poem in a way, like there's no genuine relationship here, there's an artificial, he's creating this, something like this. But the students who didn't know that this is an Israeli poet said that this could be Mahmoud Darwish, Tamim al-Barghouti, Samih al-Qasim, or other Palestinian poets. This is cute, but at the same time, from an ideological point of view, this is dangerous, because it presents the Israeli occupation as innocent, the victim and the victim. Never bring the occupied and the occupier, the colonized and the colonizer, the oppressed and the oppressor on the same scale.
That's exactly what made us suppose that it couldn't be Palestinian literature. Palestinian literature has its own features. And one thing it never does is make the two sides equal.
But I'm not, okay. Okay, I find this interesting. If you said this, that's really good thinking. But at the same time, we don't assume that there are very clear-cut differences between Israeli and Palestinian poetry. In another thing, I'll conclude with this and see what you have to say. The other thing I found very interesting, I did some research on how, that was in my MA, how Palestinian and Israeli poets represented Jerusalem, the representation of Jerusalem in Israeli and Palestinian poets. And I found so many striking similarities. But there were also some profound differences. Generally, Palestinians are outsiders. They don't have access to the city. And if they do, it's under heavy military presence. We've seen this with Tamim. And the Israelis or the Jews are insiders. They have access to roam freely, to do whatever they want, to kill even, to destroy, to demolish. Palestinians are outsiders. They don't have access. Even Palestinians living in Jerusalem. We see how Israel prevents even young women, young men from worshipping at Al-Aqsa Mosque. For months and months. You're not allowed. You just 5 minutes away from Al-Aqsa Mosque and you're not allowed to worship. So even, I'm not saying I am, how many of you have been to Jerusalem? 1, 2, 3, you just have 3 lucky people here. We are about 60 or 70. That's like very, very few. And we are here in Gaza. But there are people in the West Bank who can't be to Jerusalem. There are people in Jerusalem who can't be to Jerusalem because of the occupation, first and foremost. The first evil, the root of all evils. So Palestinians who are outsiders, Jerusalem means something else to them. For the Israelis, I noticed in their poetry, there's another poem where the Israeli poet gets inside a shop and he is fascinated by what? By the threads and the buttons, and these tiny little things, concrete things. This is what fascinates him. But those people who went to Jerusalem, when you go there, it's like a spiritual journey. It's different. It's this metaphor. It's like a dream, a vision, a dream coming true finally after years and years. I know you go there also for the kayak, but also and you take pictures, right? And you're proud of this, you love this. But you go, you pray. It's like some kind of a journey. Again, I said a journey of initiation. You feel, by the way, look this up. There's something called Jerusalem syndrome. Many people talk about this. People lose their minds when they go to Jerusalem. Look it up, it's very interesting. So it means a lot. Jerusalem is not the buildings, the walls. It's also this spirituality, this connection we have with our parents, grandparents, great-great-great-great-grandparents with the land. Not that we like any other piece of Palestine less, but we like Jerusalem more. It's our capital. Not because only of its religious value, because for Palestinian Christians, Palestinian Muslims, it's the same. Not also that we deny the existence of Jewish connections to the land. We just say that this is Palestinian land. Jews, Christians, Muslims have coexisted peacefully, and you'll find this in history. So the outsiders, Palestinians, they look at this beautiful, spiritual, poetic aspect of Jerusalem. Look at Tamim. That's why Tamim says, في القدس باع وخضرة من جورجيا بارم بزوجته فكر في قضاء إجازة أو في طلاء البيت وسياح من الإفرنج شكر تراهم يأخذون صورا مع امرأة تبيع في ساحات العالم. This is what they see. Those who live, the occupiers, the intruders, the aliens who live in Jerusalem, you just think of a paint job, how to spend a vacation here or there. Just want to take pictures with a street vendor selling vigil.
They don't feel spiritually attached.
No, I'm not saying that all of them don't, but basically. And another interesting thing, many of those poets, Israeli poets, look at Jerusalem as a city like people in London and Paris look at London and Paris respectively, as a source, as a place of sin. The city is a place of sin and corruption and vices, not us. We see, and for us also Palestinians, remember, Palestinians, for us Jerusalem brings us together, unites us. That's why most Palestinian, almost all Palestinian poems about Jerusalem brings Christians and Muslims together. Interesting. That's why Tamim again says, فَالْمَدِينَةُ دَهْرُهَا دَهْرَانِ. There are two Jerusalems, ours and theirs.
We are not in our mood, the same thinking.
Yeah. So what does this man see in Jerusalem? The laundry. Allah يعطيك العافية. The laundry. The laundry. You go to Jerusalem to look at people's laundry. Okay. Thank you. The laundry, the sheet, the towel, the white sheet, the towel. Okay, I'm raising questions here, and I'll give you 5 minutes to say what you have to say. How does the poem represent Jerusalem? Do you like that? Does the poem represent Jerusalem as should be, as a Palestinian would do? Not that there are very clear-cut differences. There are several walls in the poem. Discuss. Several walls, not only the physical one. Comment on the poem's lack of dialogue. And again, where are the Palestinians? So, in brief, while this is a beautiful poem from an aesthetic perspective, this is a horrible, horrible poem because this is a tool of further demonizing Palestinians, further dehumanizing Palestinians, and presenting Palestinians as incivil, as uncivilized, as the enemy. The woman is the enemy. The man, just for existing, just for being there, for being a Palestinian, labeled the enemy. However, listen, because this man was also critical of what Israel, the occupation, did, some of what the occupation did. Many would take this as an ironic thing when he says, the man that is my enemy, the woman that is my enemy, would take this as an ironic, being critical of Israel and Israeli policy. You could also look into that. Please, say something. Please.
Okay, the thing is that when we were given this poem without an author or without a poet, we tried to look at it from a perspective of an Israeli who is, I don't want to say pro-Palestinian, but I would just say that a regular human being, okay? Like, yes, I am a Jew, but I do not practice or I do not support all these things. So this is why we really, in our group, we really thought that this could be either Palestinian or
okay, I see that. I see your point. More, please.
Can we say that the writer or the poet of this poem that he is or he agrees with the two-state solution because he liked that.
If you take this ironically in a sense, he criticizes the wall. He seems to be saying the wall is not good because it dehumanizes. But he himself is building actually two walls.
Yeah.
The physical wall, there's the physical wall in Jerusalem. There is the physical wall in the poem. And there is also the metaphorical wall he's building by alienating Palestinians.
The two-state solution is one of the biggest myths and lies that were ever said. There can't be a two-state
True,
solution
you're right.
because each part takes the other one. Even if they say that they don't.
In reality, on the ground in the West Bank, there is no way for a two-state solution because Israel has,
They raise their children to hate us.
it's not about that. It's not about that. It's also about the reality on the ground in the West Bank. If you have a look at the map, Palestinians live in cantons and what's the word? Like in isolated ghettos, like in South Africa. So even if you want to move from one village to the other, you need permission, and you need, to go through. There are roads for Jews only. There are roads Palestinians, non-Jews are not allowed to take, etc. So on the ground, Israel has made it impossible. But Israel is selling this. But this is politics. I don't want to get into politics whether you like one state solution where everybody is equal, one man or woman, one vote, which Israel rejects categorically. Please.
About the walls, I don't think he applies the wall existence directly, because maybe he says this wall is existed because of the Palestinian existence. So those Palestinians are...
Where is your indication in the poem? You're saying, I don't see him blaming Palestinians for this, for the war.
He says the woman is my enemy.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So you're talking about this, how Palestinians build these walls by being the enemy. That's
Also, those walls will be also not existent.
okay. Thank you.
How he reacts towards the wall and towards Jerusalem is totally different about the Palestinian. Like in a Palestinian poet, when a Palestinian poet mentions Jerusalem, he will automatically emotionally be evoked, like he will cry. So in a
Not necessarily, not usually, but more or less, yes.
When he said like يا أيها الباكي وراء السور, so he is crying upon Jerusalem and what happened to it.
That's right.
So it's attached to its.
It's a very spiritual, very emotional, very sentimental experience, not just someone here coming to watch. And I find laundry interesting because it could be like actual laundry or فضايح يعني, something like this. Defeat.
The poet in a way or another is confessing that the fight between the two parties is meaningless.
And please don't say, sorry for interrupting you. Many of you wrote conflict. This is by no means a conflict. This is by no means a conflict. This is a brutal, aggressive occupation of our land. Many of you say the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. This is an occupation, a brutal, medieval, imperialist occupation. So yeah, you're saying?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I'm talking about how he finds this occupation or the issue between the two parties as merely meaningless. It is merely flags and a wall that he doesn't see the point of. So that's kind of not seeing why are these.
Thank you. That's a very, very, very amazing idea. Thank you. You'll see many liberal Zionists stripping the cause here, the issue, from its politics and political issues. Just a humanitarian. Oh, let those poor kids fly their kites in peace. Why shouldn't this man be, this woman be, peacefully doing the laundry? I think we should, Palestine for them is like only a humanitarian thing. It's not like, and those liberal Zionists are very dangerous because they don't oppose the occupation per se. They don't call for the end of the occupation. They don't call for complete rights for Palestinians. They just want acute occupation, an occupation that would kill Palestinians not by massacring and bombing them, but by probably starving them, besieging them, or if you kill them off camera, off stage, because you're making us look bad in the West. Like you have 30 seconds.
The poet is not satisfied with the conditions that they are around now, because he says that they think they are happy and we think that we are happy, but that doesn't mean that he wants a peaceful solution, because previously he said that my enemy. Also, I want to say something about the position. He positions himself in a higher.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very smart thing. Yeah, he's on a roof. He's up above. He's also detached. This could be one.
Remind me of in Hebron, they have a neighborhood where our Jews are living above, and they
strategically, you'll see, you go to the West Bank, all the hilltops and high areas have been, even Jerusalem, West Bank, Nablus, Al Khalil, they were taken here. Brief. brief.
First time I read this poem, I found it's a Palestinian poem, and it's very painful because this man, like, look at the trivial things. They deserve to be our laundering, not their laundering. And the walls, he mean by the wall that the restriction maybe the UN put it in.
UN?
Yes, put on us to not defend our country.
Okay, so you're taking this as if this is a Palestinian poet. But yeah, now we know that this is not a Palestinian poet. Somebody raised their hand.
She said because you cannot see this child, he's in a hard place. No, because like maybe he's walking on the ground. He only can see the kite.
The text says they're on a roof in the old city. What's that? Say again. The poem clearly says on a roof, positioning the poet on a higher place.
And in case that the wall is so high, not that he's on high.
Okay, briefly.
The whole tone of the poem sounds to me as a condescending person who's trying to prove that I think equally of the other side, although he's clearly condescending.
I think that they are oh look, they're humans, they have laundry, look.
Like he discovers something.
Somebody is flying a kite.
Yeah.
Briefly.
You said that there is Palestinian in the poem. You asked her where is the evidence. I think when you said wall, that already means that wall separates between two extremes. So it means there's Palestinian and
But it doesn't mention who built the wall, who is erecting the walls, the physical walls, the occupation being the first important wall. Anyway, I'll post this poem on our Facebook group. You can, if you have more points, more things to write, you're welcome. Thank you very much, ladies, and see you inshallah soon.